Right. So oh shoot. Let's find the link for the live thing and share. To you know what? I'm just gonna drop this on Facebook. So and ba 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 ba. Yeah, why not? All right, now let's eat that, and let's get something to drink. We'll make the cherry limeade. We'll do that to get things going. Move that out. There was a little bit left in there before, so I'm gonna work with that. I just topped it back off because I'm gonna be talking and cooking, then might as well have something to drink. All right, just that. And there's no sugar added to this. I'm actually going to dial that volume down a little bit, because we all know I can't talk quietly. And there we go. That's better. Okay, and give it a few minutes to see if anybody shows up here. If anybody's wondering what I'm drinking, it's G Fuel, the cherry limeade. And if you're wondering what we're going to be making, this is the crust that we're going to be doing, the recipe for basically low carb pizza shells. Well, I'm going to make full-on pizzas because I'm hungry, but that's the idea. All right, get going. And the first thing I'm going to need is 1.5 cups of mozzarella. Let me go grab the boom. All right, 1.5 cups of mozzarella. Set that there for a second. Go grab my measuring cups. And where did I hide them? Oh, right over here. That's super helpful. Okay. 1.5 cups of mozzarella. Basically, the whole point of this crust is that it is really low carb, which normal dough is, or wheat-based dough ends up being like 40 grams of carbs per serving. So, and this doesn't have to be super exact on these measurements, but I'm going to make an effort to make it be somewhat consistent. So that's 1 scoop, and we'll go to half too. Yeah. That's going to be a mess. We'll do it the other way. All over me. All right. 1.5 cups of mozzarella. And we need 2 tablespoons of cream cheese. So we're going to go ahead and get, I just grabbed this out of the fridge. I used it last night. I had it in a bag. Do that. You go grab a knife to trim that off with. Right, and we'll go with roughly not that much there. I'm just breaking this up because you're going to microwave this and then it will soften up and you'll mix it all together and it will create a dough-like consistency. We'll set that aside for right now. Alright, and that back to the middle. And we also need 3/4 of a cup of almond flour. So we're going to go 1/2 cup. And 1/4 cup. Because remedial math is not outside my understanding. Alright, cool. So that's that. Oh, that's so loud. Bag. The almond flour up there. And I'm going to grab a spoon. I'm going to go with a silicone spoon because why not? Right? Okay, so let's give this a quick toss. Try not to touch the cream cheese too much because it's sticky and all that. This is just saving you some manual labor later on. It's not required, but me being lazy and assuming most of everybody else to be too, we're going to go this route. And there's that. All right. So, we have that. We're going to go ahead and stick this in the microwave for 30 seconds. All right, there's that. I had bacon bits too. I'm going to grab those. Not fake bacon, real bacon. Oh shoot, I was going to add some garlic powder to that. Well, I can still mix it in. It's not completely melted yet. I'm gonna let that finish. That. You're probably gonna have to do this twice, so I'm gonna go ahead and just shake on some garlic powder. And I'll grab some salt as well. Pink salt. I like this. Not that everybody hasn't seen a salt grinder before. And I was going to go with some Italian seasoning. Normally you could just go with oregano or rosemary, something of the sort. This happens to have everything all in one, so again, saving time. Let's just toss this once. Again, the first round is going to just soften it up and bring it up to slightly above room temperature, which is fine. I'm going to actually mix it with a hand mixer, electric, because this is 2018. And I don't have all day. And I'm assuming none of you do either. This is not, the whole point of this is to show that this is super easy and quick, even if you're as clumsy as I am. So, that my hands. And the reason I'm using the electric mixer is because this stuff will be super sticky and stick to you like you have no idea. So, I'm going to do this for another 30 seconds. And while that is happening, I'm going to grab the electric mixer. Rule 1, don't dust. Use the mixer. Don't put the mixing blades in while it's plugged in. Unless you don't really like your fingers all that much, because you don't know if it's on or what's going on. So, grab those out of the strainer. Plug this in. I have a power strip underneath my counter. And, oh, that was loud. Okay. Now this should be good to mix up. I'm going to go ahead and mute my mic so that this doesn't kill your ears, and it'll be right back. Alright, since I'm basically done with the microwave now, we just set that over there in front of it. And like I said, it turns into a dough ball. Very easy to work with as long as it stays warm. Once it cools down, it'll have a tendency to turn back into mozzarella and cream cheese. It will be somewhere in the middle of the two as far as consistency. But there you go. That's basically the dough. And I got stuff all over the place, but that's fine. Should have a towel here to wipe my hands, saving the planet, but I'm also keeping the paper companies in business. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take some aluminum foil and we're going to put this in the oven up here. So, we'll go ahead and grab out some of that aluminum foil. That. Right down. That in there. And try and get this as flat as possible, but accidents will happen. Okay. Alright, I think I'm just going to use that dough, all the dough, and make one big square pizza. Although, I want to slide this up a little bit to the other end, just in case. There. I'm going to wrap it all around. Alright. You ever needed evidence that I'm not a professional? This is it. Clumsy as I am with aluminum foil. But eventually it will get to something useful. Like that. Because the light's not completely blowing it out. But that'll be better once I get this down. This is the non-reflective side, or the less reflective side, I should say, is the best one to use for. And this dough is fairly pliable. It's not going to be like working with gluten, but that's fine. It's plenty for what we need it to be. And we need this to be wider. And I completely skipped the egg. Brilliant! Alright, we're going to incorporate the egg into it now. We'll go this route. Alright. And you can still mix everything together after the fact on this. It's very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for would be, but it's very forgiving, I guess. So all that work I did to save myself some manual labor is now wasted. So, alright, we're going to start this off by flattening it out. Oh. And apparently there's a metal bar in the middle of the spoon I was not aware of. Because it's bending. Alright, so I think I have it incorporated enough to finish it with the electric mixer. There's that, and put this aside, and I set that down. Incorporate that there. All right, now back to where we were. A little bit more gooey at this point, but I will show you a way to handle that more easily. Okay. Now, what we will do is we're going to take our pan, wipe the egg, I'll get it with a wipe later. All right, so take our spoon and move that there. And we'll use it to put this into the pan. Right dead center. Not even close. But, let's move up. Roll it to the middle. All right. And here's a helpful trick, because you can leverage the non-stick talents of aluminum foil, like so. Now, I don't want to be even as possible. And you can even, where the dough is not as sticky as old style gluten, you can break off parts of it, and it's less of an issue as far as it sticking. Okay, I'm going to this to basically smooth it out, push it to the edges more. That, rotate it around. And again, if this starts to firm up, you're just going to want to microwave. Well, obviously not at this point. When it's in the metal pan with the aluminum foil, you're not going to want to stick that in the microwave for obvious reasons. Hopefully nobody needs me to tell them that. I don't want any future Darwin Award winners on the show, but and I want everybody to be around long enough so that they can enjoy the pizza. All right, almost there. And if you get any holes in it, just plot some more of the stuff in there. Like I said again, it's not like if you're tossing pizza dough and it punches a hole in it, it's basically very difficult to get that hole done, re-stick again forever. All right, I'm gonna set that there. And this is the preliminary pizza crust. What I'm going to do is also a bit of a pro tip. Just poke some holes in it with a fork. This is to keep it so that when it starts melting down, it doesn't bubble up. All right. So we will go ahead and take this, put it in our oven We'll go 450 degrees. I'm going to set it for 10 minutes, but I'll be checking it periodically. And while that is the case, I'm going to the counter here. Just all that almond flour that before it got incorporated into the dough. And I can, that's not really going to work well. But I'll keep an eye on it. You can trust me. Not a professional, but I've done this before. So, okay. Wow. Unlock screen on the phone really hates the dough in your hands. Alright, so we're going to get our sauce out. And this is going to be a pepperoni and bacon pizza. Give it a couple more minutes. The thing I like about these countertop ovens is that you can set the time on them, which you can do in an actual full oven, like I have in my kitchen over there. But these ones actually shut off on a timer. Those ones don't. So when my son cooks something, he cooks it in this because teenagers have a tendency to get distracted and go into the other room, or go grab a drink, and then they turn around and it's basically charred. So that. Okay, so let's put this back on the recipe so that everybody can see what is included. It's 5 ingredients, and you could probably argue that 2 of those listed, alright, 1 of them listed is optional. You don't have to put the spices and seasoning in. I would definitely recommend it because it will taste way better, but you're still getting mozzarella and cream cheese and a little bit of, the slightest hint of the egg flavoring, but everything else basically masks it. It doesn't taste like egg. There are some keto and low-carb recipes where, and breads especially, that when you cook them, they take on a very eggy, or either consistency or flavor. But this isn't one of those. This is very much a cheese-based crust. But the mixing of the cream cheese with the mozzarella, melting it, makes it hides a lot of the egg flavor, I should say. And the almond flour basically just makes it a little bit more hearty, I guess is the best word I would use to describe it. And it's getting there. So. You may be tempted, because you can only see the top of it, to use the broil function. And every time that I've used the broil function just to finish the top of it off, I should say, it ends up the bottom of it's not done, and it's still kind of the sticky cheese consistency. It will still come off the aluminum foil fine, but the problem with that is it's going to stick to everything you set it on. You'll be able to peel off the aluminum foil, but when you set it on a plate and start cutting it up, it will, stick to the plate. Every time you pick it up, it's going to stick to your hands. It's better to just avoid the broil function, which just heats directly on the top, and let it cook all the way through. And then that way when the top is browned, bottom is done as well. ideally. So. And yes, they are, Nash. All right. And it may have looked a little bit, I don't know, insubstantial, but like it would break up a lot. I know sometimes cauliflower pizza crust, if you don't get all of the moisture out of it, I'm personally not a huge fan. I haven't been able to pull them off to where they taste good, but or that I enjoy. Plenty of other people will probably enjoy them, and I will probably end up trying to make some because the whole point of trying out new things as far as dieting, like eating low carb, things like that. The whole point of it is that you don't want to give up a ton of the things that you really enjoy, like entirely. Obviously, this pizza is not the same as like, a breast of chicken with, vegetables or, anything like that. This is still less healthy than that, but this is far healthier than a regular pizza as far as carb count goes. And so it's fine every once in a while to have it. And sometimes it's things like this that let you stick on your eating plan and keep in within your macros and everything like that when you really just want to, you know, hit up the gas station and grab a slice or two. And it's getting there. But yeah, she's warm now. Yeah, so if anybody's watching along, you can actually message right on the Facebook. If you go to YouTube, um, just open it up full screen on a desktop, or if you're even watching it on a mobile device, you can actually chat within the app itself, and I'll see it right on my screen. I have it set up on my fourth screen up above. Speaking of which, yeah, that's not going to work. Well, I had a plan to have that set up properly. Let's check that while that's going. Minimize this. There we go. Okay. Kind of tempted to hit that with a little bit of melted butter on top, but I think we have enough with the two different types of cheese. Sometimes you want to just, when you're baking something, and this is pre-baking it, because it's going to go back in to cook everything else a little bit more. You tempted to just brush some melted butter and sprinkle some seasoning on the top of it as well, but I'm resisting. Really hates stuff. Okay. And let's take a look. Still has a few minutes left, but, and this is letting all the heat out, I'm aware. Let's see how it's going. I can put it back in. You can see how it's solidifying up. Well, shiny. So let's put that back in. Give it a few more minutes. Do a little bit more. And you can use this dough. This is a really versatile dough. You can use it from, I've used it personally from anything from sub rolls, although it's a little dense for sandwich bread. That's something you're going to run into with most low carb bread substitutes, but had that issue. You know, I've made sub sandwich bread with it, and also, give me just a moment, let me move this. That issue, and cat's trying to attack the stuff. I don't want her on the counter for obvious reasons. No, go, lay down. Genji wanted to get in on the show. And it's getting there. It's going to be a few more minutes. And I've also used it for bagels. You can do that as well with it. You can do basically any kind of, you would use like a crusty style bread. You can, like I said, you can use it for sandwich bread. It's really not great for that because it is so dense with the cheese. Usually things that tend to be thinner and a little more solid, like a bagel or a pizza crust style bread. And boom. Getting there. Don't do it. We'll let him. Be good. So, this is what we're going to be rocking here. Yeah. Bacon. And plain old generic pizza sauce. Could have gone with something more elaborate, but I ended up buying a lot of mozzarella because I didn't know how many of these I was planning to make. And I screwed up a little bit because I'm planning on using the vacuum sealer over there and making a bunch of these, pre-baking them. Not quite done. And pre-baking them and then freezing them after I vacuum seal them, so that, you know, if you work 40 plus hours a week, or even if you have a really strenuous job that you're not working, you know, a huge number of hours, but you're still, you know, pretty exhausted when you get home, you know, you don't necessarily want to take, you know, an hour or two in order to make dinner every night. You know, you just want to get home, you want to eat something, and then go to bed. And I think that's a big reason why fast food is becoming, you know, such an issue in this country. It's not like, trust me, I love fast food, and I'm not knocking it at all, but, you know, we've taken on the point of where we eat it more than, you know, we maybe should. Not, you know, we'll have it multiple times in a week instead of it being more of a treat, but, and I think the issue with that is we just don't have enough time and energy to cook during the week. A lot of times I'll, get home from work around, 6:30. I don't feel like spending an hour putting a meal together. So, and that's usually where, when you're trying to change your eating habits, um, that's usually where you start slipping through the cracks, falling off the wagon, whatever analogy you want to use. And I think the thing that works for me is, and there's another reason for this as well I'll get into since we have time. Oh, it's getting there. So I'm going to set that off and open it up and rest for a second. And just two kind of, I would keep saying pro tip, but it's not really a pro tip, it's just an interesting thing that I found. If you pre-cook things, in this vacuum sealer I got, I'll probably do a review of it very soon, just a pre-recorded video. This is, let me move this out of the way. Got this for Christmas. My mother bought it for me because she knows how much I like to cook. And the whole point of this is, and my son obviously, my son's even reaching the point where he doesn't want to eat fast food all the time. Single dad, so I'm sure other single parents out there can relate to not having the energy or the time to do everything the way that they would necessarily like to, if there were more hours in the day or if there were more of them, or more hands. But if you make things ahead of time to the point where you're basically just assembling ingredients, slapping it in the oven for 5 to 10 minutes to heat it up, melt the cheese, stuff like that, then it becomes so much easier to stick to, a more typical or a more homemade eating plan. What I've done is I've taken, and this is what kind of led me to think about this way, was that, I like burgers, and I have a really good, it's called a mug bread recipe, but I use it basically for hamburger buns. It's what I use it for, sometimes for sandwich bread stuff. Basically, you mix up, you make this, and I'll probably do a video just on this, even though I'll also link the video where I found basically this bread dough here. These are the ingredients right on the back. And you basically just make a big bucket of this, with a screw-on cap so that it doesn't get stale. And all you do is you melt a tablespoon of butter and a coffee cup. Then once that's completely melted, you add in 1/4 scoop, which is the exact dimensions of this white scoop I have in there to make it easier. Crack an egg, dump that in with this 1/4 cup of that. Mix it all up really good so that there's no bits of that egg that are just going to be, typical egg whites or sticking out. Pop it in the microwave for 90 seconds, and it's literally like a hamburger bun. You just take it out, slice it in half, and I pre-cooked a bunch of hamburger patties and vacuum sealed them with the sealer, and just stuck them right in, completely cooked while they were still warm, vacuum sealed them, stuck them in the freezer. And now whenever I want a burger, I normally will have 2 patties, but just because I used to make two different hamburger buns with the keto bread, but it's actually gotten to the point where to get below my calorie restrictions that I want, and that's obviously something you definitely want to do if you're trying to lose weight like I am. The buns had more calories than the hamburger patty itself. So basically I'm cut it down to 1 bun and just use 2 patties with cheese in the center of it, and just put some, no added sugar, ketchup, and some mustard on it, and just, there's dinner. And the fact that I just have to grab a package out of the freezer, then it's just like you don't have to mess with the frozen meals. If you wanted to go with that, you don't have to mess with, just that stuff's packed with nitrates and everything. Grab this out too. I'm gonna get a pot holder to set this down on. Now that it's cooled off a little bit. Damn, set these out. Right, grab that. And but now that I have all these burgers in the freezer. Whenever I want a burger, it's not a. And that looks good. You have to watch it because it will go for a little while, and it won't look like anything's doing anything. Won't look like it's cooking. Won't look like it's cooking, and then you'll turn around and it will be like, oh wow, that's really done. So, you grab a spoon as well to put some of the sauce on. And okay, so this. Also, part of the reason I'm doing this in real time is because the reason I like live streaming cooking is that you'll get people that are like, this is how you're doing it, and then it will cut away and come back, and it will look entirely different, and you'll have no idea how they got from point A to point B. It'll look like they messed it up, tagged somebody from the other corner to come in and do their job, and then and you're left looking at watching the video going, if they can't even do it, how am I going to do it? So I definitely like this format better than pre-recorded things. I plan on doing the like product reviews for like the vacuum sealer and things like that pre-recorded, just simply because I'm not gonna. It'll be minimal editing, but I think it's less of an issue. And again, you can do this much quicker if you're better at it than I am, but I'm trying to make this Instagram perfect. So, because I do plan on taking a photo and posting it to my @LowRentChef, all one word, Instagram. If anybody's not already following me. Don't always post about food, but often. Probably the thing I post about most. Alright. So let's get the cheese on this. No. Get down. You guys see my cat Genji is watching to be helpful. She's really not helping. Basically hoping I drop some cheese so that she can sniff it and then ignore it like she normally does with everything else I try to feed her, aside from her food. Alright, more cheese. I like a lot of cheese. Some people are their cheese a little different. And I like generally speaking, things like pizza and stuff like that, they tend to be better and look better. They taste better the less time you spend putting them together. I don't know if it's an issue of just knowing what you're doing, because obviously pizzerias and stuff like that can do things very quickly out of practice. This is not something I make all the time. Still not super cool. Alright, so let's do this. Put little bacon pieces. This is not this is real bacon. This isn't the crunchy bacon bit stuff. That's basically made out of wheat and flour, and there's a lot of carbs in wheat and flour. A little bit more. You don't want to overdo it because you get part of what makes these dishes good is that there's a separation of the different flavors and the textures. And if you just make everything, mix it all together, then it doesn't work as well. Stuff they put on the cheese just to keep it separated from clumping. Plant cellulose, which people like to overreact and call sawdust. Add some pepperoni. And if I can get that apart. I like to put a little bit more cheese on top of this. Just basically to bind everything together and hold it all down. It's a preference thing. Make these however you make it. Once the crust is done, it's basically just becomes a pizza decorating and topping situation. So, all right. Okay, I'll put these back in there. For next time, take the oil off my hands. If I need to in a second. And like I said, put a little more cheese, just a light amount. Doesn't need to cover everything. This is basically just a binding agent to hold it all together. Doesn't need to cover everything, but it needs to touch everything, I guess. There. The air out of that. And I'm going to dust it with a little bit of Italian seasoning. Just so that it looks cool. And it helps. Because when I grew up, we had this, the town I grew up in, Heartland, which is only about 15 minutes from where I'm at now. When I was really young, there used to be this local pizza place called Lewis Pizzeria. It was more of a, you call it a convenience store because they didn't just sell pizza, but primarily what people went there for was pizza. It was a really small, I remember how cramped it was. And they had this little countered off section where they made the pizzas. And I remember those pizzas being the greatest thing ever, and I know in my mind that they were basically just taking pre-made pizza crusts and putting semi-generic sauce on it, cheese and toppings, but when you're a kid you remember everything more fondly than it was better. That's why when you get to be an adult and you go back after the fact and try out things that when you were a child, they don't always live up to your memories because your mind tends to make them out to be better than they were. That pizza place went out of business a while back, but I always have good memories about it. So, we are going to get that out of the way. And basically, actually I'm going to need them again, so I don't know why I moved them. Put that there, over there. And now we just wait. Too bad. Cat is not happy. Sun came out of his room and now the cat wants to go in and say hi and close the door. So this one here will probably set this to broil. Simply because we're not baking the crust anymore. We're just melting the toppings. And obviously, if you couldn't tell by the name, baking all of this in my apartment, and the plan eventually, like for everybody, is to have your own place. And if I could redesign a kitchen of my dreams, it would all be using these countertop appliances that I'm going to be exclusively cooking with, because I think cooking is more of a communal exercise if you're, a part of the reason why, and this is maybe a small part of the reason, but it's something I've kind of come to believe since I've been doing this with this arrangement, even before I started streaming it live, was that part of the reason people don't like cooking in today's age is because when you're cooking, most of the appliances are set against the wall with a counter, just because that is, that's the logistically the easiest way to set up the appliances, keep everything, working. It's not a super effective use of space to have everything just sitting in the middle that you have to weave around. But I also think that if you're just, say you're cooking something on the stove, you're just standing in front of the oven, staring at the wall, working with whatever you have on the stove top or the range top, depending on what terms you use, or if you're doing dishes or anything like that, any of those things you normally would do that are involved in cooking. Generally, everybody else is off doing things, and you're standing there, and they're behind you, and you can't even see, and it's a very lonely, thing. Granted, you're not there for hours on end. You're only half an hour here, 45 minutes there, but it's still, you feel like you're doing something, and you can't enjoy your day like everybody else is doing. If somebody says something to you, you have to turn around and talk to them, and then turn back around and go back to doing what you were doing. And I think it's just, personally, if I could design my dream kitchen, it would be nothing, absolutely nothing on the walls except maybe heating registers on the floor, things like that, maybe windows, and like racks on the wall about yay high, just regular wire racks, everything exposed, so that you don't have things hiding in the back of the cabinets, like expired canned goods and things like that. You see it and you're like, oh, okay, I got to take care of that. It's a way to keep everything neater and in your current present state of mind. And then also just in the center have a large countered island, and then have a raised up electrical strip all the way around it, up above, where basically obviously have it so that if you get any water in it, have one of the protected switches. And basically you can just plug in appliances that you're using at the time. That way you don't have anything permanently on the counter. You can clean it all up. It's neat, everything like that after the fact. And then also, like when you have a range and an oven, if that goes or has an issue or breaks, you are probably looking at a couple $100 at least to replace that. Whereas and even if the range top works fine, if the oven goes, you need an oven. You're going to need an oven to cook certain types of things. Or if burners go out, things like that, and it's not a simple element replacement, those become major financial expenses. So if you have using primarily less expensive countertop appliances, and you can obviously spend as much money there as you want to as well, but at least there's more granularity as far as what you can, what your expense is going to be in that. And you can, if it goes, if there's an issue with it, maybe even if you don't necessarily need and if you don't necessarily need that specific function, like an oven or a microwave at the time, you can choose when you replace it, and it ends up being, a $50, $60 expense, just as a baseline, like if you're just having a tight month or whatever. And people are more and more living paycheck to paycheck. This isn't necessarily a cooking show for people that can have and afford in-wall ovens and you know, prep their own prep cooks or whatever. You know, this is for normal people that have apartments, that live paycheck to paycheck, and you know, it's a way to get people back to cooking that don't think they have the time, don't think they have the money, don't think they know how. They think it's too complicated. It's really not, but there is an art to minimizing the complexity of it. Like, make it simple, you know, make everything simple, make everything easy. You know, don't blow money on things that you don't need to. You can buy a 1 pound bag of this cheese for, you know what, $4. You can buy it um, at a like a warehouse store like Sam's Club or BJ's or someplace like that for, you know, you can buy more of it even less expensive and simply freeze it. And that's still cooking. So, but oh, it's on broil. You can, you know, and freeze it, and that's the big thing about eating healthy. I've always, you know, struggled with it, and I think a lot of people do as well. It's not, you'll sit here and say, well, eating healthy is expensive, and it is. I'm not going to sit here and try and tell you that it's not. You'll see people that are, you know, will post recipes. They're like, this is $2 a day. It is, but you have to buy, you know, $40 worth of ingredients and spread it out over, you know, eat it for 20 meals in a row. Not really many people are going to want to do that in order to hit that budget mark. So yeah, you can do it. It's possible, but you're better off, you know, finding ways to spread out what you buy for ingredients. So, like I said, options like a vacuum sealer. This vacuum sealer I think was $30 or $40, but you can vacuum seal food and it will last for a year in the freezer. Ingredients, you can pre-cook things. You can just, like, I can vacuum seal the mozzarella cheese, stuff it in the freezer. It's not going to get freezer burn after a month like a lot of other things do, and it saves a ton of money, and it allows you. The problem with eating healthy is the things that are healthy, they go bad quickly. You buy, you know, a head of lettuce, a bag of lettuce, stuff it in the fridge, and you know, it's going to go bad shortly, in a few days sometimes. And that's the biggest expense with eating healthy is you buy healthy things, and unless you're spending a ton of time planning out what you're going to eat, what you're going to make for dinner, you are just throwing a lot of stuff out. You know, you're just looking at it like, oh, I'm wasting more money. Throw it in the trash. Then you don't buy any healthy food for another month because you're like, I can't do that. Like, I can't waste, you know, 50, 60 bucks on food that we're not going to eat. So you go back to the frozen dinners or buying chicken or burgers someplace, you know, or pizzas someplace locally, because again, you don't have to store the food. You don't have to worry about the food expiring. You just buy it as you need it. Or if it's in the freezer, it'll last a while. It's fine. You know, nobody's really excited about frozen meals that are in the freezer that you pop out, TV dinners, so to speak. But it's better than wasting money. And with a few tweaks to the way you do things, you can save a ton of time and save a ton of money and still eat really healthy and still cook, and you know, you'll feel better for it. And that's the main thing. It's not so much that you're going to live, you know, another year and a half because you ate kale every day. It's more, you're just going to have more energy all the time because you'll feel better. You won't feel like crap, like, oh, I need coffee to get through the day. You know, you'll feel a little better because you're eating better. And that's the one thing I've noticed since I started doing this, is that I do feel better. We're almost there. And it's all about just setting up a process to where this lifestyle, you know, just making choices that you can cook yourself, you know, in rough half an hour or less, things that you're just done a lot of pre-cooking, and you don't want to do a ton of dishes either. You know, if you're coming home, that's the other big part of it is, yeah, maybe it takes you a half an hour to an hour to cook, but you also have to spend, you know, 15, 20 minutes doing dishes that you don't want to do. Nobody likes doing dishes. If you do, you're a weirdo. But, you know, if you pre-cook a bunch of things and vacuum seal it, stuff it in the freezer, or just prep it to the point where, you know, you can eat it over the course of months, you're also, if you're pre-cooking all of this to the point where you can just zap it in the microwave to heat it up, then, oh, we're almost there. I want it to be just slightly toasted on the cheese, just because I like that texture. But if you do all that, you're also only cleaning the dishes that you use to cook that food one time. You know, I'm sure most people have like a Foreman grill or some form of electric grill like that. And, you know, if I cook all those burgers, I bought like a whole like stack in a plastic container of frozen burger patties and just cooked all of them, set them on a plate, you know, cut up a bunch of vacuum sealed bags, stuffed the, you know, it's right on my Instagram, you can see it, and vacuum sealed them, stuffed them in the freezer, and then I only had to clean the Foreman grill once, you know, for all of those meals. Now all I have to do is I just cut the corner off it so that it has a slight vent in that vacuum sealed bag, zap it in the microwave, you know, for a minute or minute and a half, and then pop it out, and I have burgers that I can just throw cheese on and put together with the 90-second mug bread that I make. And, you know, in under 5 minutes, I can have what tastes like fresh cooked burgers with fresh bread. And maybe that'll be the next video I make, is just to show that whole process of how, you know, you cook everything to make your life more simple. You just, you know, you pre-cook the things that you can do in bulk, and then there are small things like the bread, things like that, that are relatively quick to do without a ton of cleanup. You know, you're basically left with a coffee cup. You know, you throw the vacuum sealed bag out, put some cheese on it. You have, whether you choose the sliced cheese or the singles, you know, maybe you have a slip of plastic to throw out, and you basically have a cheeseburger, a double cheeseburger. And, you know, to clean a coffee cup and have cheeseburgers, that's your main amount of work that you have to do after the fact. You know, it's pretty game changing, and I don't really like to use that kind of hyperbole all the time, but, you know, it's super great to just be able to come home on a day when you're exhausted and you're like, God, I really feel like a burger. Just grab one out of the freezer, nuke it in the microwave, and then make the bread, nuke that. That takes, you know, 2 minutes to make on its own. Slice the bread, drop the burger on it, and you're done. 5 minutes to a burger that is home cooked, doesn't have all the crap in it. And, all right, we're going to call it. Ding. Well, it didn't get crispy, but I figured other people have stuff to do. So, drop this down here, and boom. That pretty good looking pizza. That up so we can and I'm going to get a knife at that, because actually I still have the knife from the cream cheese, which is fine. Wipe off the cream cheese because a little bit that stuck to it. And let me grab my little knife all over. Cut this up, square pizza slices. Because a round pizza cutter in a small pan like this is kind of pointless, unless you have a smaller one. Come on, let go. That's really cheap. Oh, that's good. And once this is after the fact, I'm going to just leave it up in its entirety, and I will put down time codes for jumping to the individual sections. Maybe put some cards on it or something so that make it easier to get from the beginning when you're starting out going over the recipe to the part where, you know, you do individual steps. Because I do believe it's important to show uninterrupted when you're trying to learn something so that you don't skip or miss anything. even if you're not aware of that you're skipping it. But I also think that this video is probably going to be, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes. And not everybody wants to watch a half hour, 45-minute video. So you'll be able to just jump between what is on there. All right. Okay. Now there's that. Go pepperoni. I'm gonna go grab a plate. And I'll grab this little rice spoon because I don't have a mini spatula. I will first move this out of the way. Over, and I'm gonna take an image of this because almond flour gets because you can't put it back together again after. All right. I gotta figure out how Instagram puts their how you can use multiple images you take at the time. All right, so apparently I didn't do a whole lot better with the knife than I would have done better. So, and the cheese is obviously still warm, so that's gonna be to it sticking. All right. Okay, now let's take another image. All right, we're gonna post this live because why not? Celery, multiple. There we go. Hashtag no filter. Just finished. Use all kinds of hashtags. All right. Posted. All right. Like I said, you can check that out on Instagram at @LowRentChef, all one word. So I'm going to go ahead and skip out. Probably ought to taste test this. Let's see. All right. Any good? You can see the bottom's not super crispy. I could have done a little bit. Nope. This would be helpful if I change cameras. You know, it is crispy a little bit on the bottom. That was probably because I had it too high off the elements, but all right, let's give this a taste test and then we can get out of here. It's pizza. So, again, this is one of those recipes that goes really well with this type of crust because it's already got a lot of mozzarella on it, and the sauce is right on the crust, so it's really good. So I'm going to go ahead and bail out so that I can eat, maybe make my son one, and thanks for watching.